We are Analytical Media, a consortium, a group of therapists, college professors, and well-published, peer-reviewed authors. Today's question: if you achieve all of the outward signs of success, fame, fortune, enviability, will you be happy, mentally healthy, without neurosis or psychosis? I'll read that again. If you achieve all of the outward signs of success, what we see movie stars, rich people, and we think that they are successful. They have the money. They also have the fame. They're famous. We know their names. They have a fortune. They seem to be very wealthy. They have enviability, which means people envy them. They want to be them. And then the question is, if you have all that, will you be happy, mentally healthy, without neurosis or psychosis? And the simple answer is no, you will not be. You might think it would be true. Most people would think it would be true. You think, wow, if I had their money and I had all those possessions and people liked me and I was famous, my life would be so good. But in reality, it isn't. I'd like you to think about all of the movie stars who killed themselves. Movie stars who became horribly addicted to drugs. And remember, nobody takes drugs because life is good. They take drugs because life could be better. They think, I don't feel good. Do a little bit of this, snort a little bit of that, smoke some of this, and suddenly, life is good. People use drugs to feel better, including alcohol. Alcohol is a drug. Think of all those famous people, many of whom died from drug overdoses. The more money they had, the more drugs they could afford. And the longer they could stay on drugs, their success killed them. It literally killed them. Many, many famous people fall in that category. Let's look at a quote from Carl Jung in his book, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. Quote, I have frequently seen people become neurotic when they content themselves with inadequate or wrong answers to the questions of life. They seek position, marriage, reputation, outward success of money, and still remain unhappy and neurotic even when they have attained what they were seeking. Such people are usually confined within too narrow a spiritual horizon. Their life has not sufficient content or sufficient meaning. If they are enabled to develop into more spacious personalities, the neurosis generally disappears. As he uses the term neurosis, he is referring to anxiety disorders and depression. So he says, I have frequently seen people become neurotic with an anxiety condition or with depression when they content themselves, when they are satisfied with inadequate or wrong answers to the questions of life. The questions of life, the philosophical questions: why am I here? What should I be doing? What will make me happy? What is important? What is the meaning of life? And he says, if you settle for, and he uses the term content themselves, if you settle for simply inadequate answers, you take a simple little answer and that's as far as you're going to go. That can cause anxiety and depression. Or wrong answers. So you've answered those life questions incorrectly. Either one of those will lead to anxiety disorders and depression. And he says the common mistake they make is they seek position. They want to become the mayor. They want to become the president. They want to become the head butcher. They have goals to rise up in life. And they seek marriage, marrying the right person, looking for a good marriage, a marriage that will combine resources, bring them more than they have now. And at the time that Jung was writing this, that's how marriages occurred. They were arranged. You married correctly. The marriages were arranged by your parents. What would be the best arrangement? What would help the families the most? That's what marriages were. So you tried to better yourself by marrying the right way, the right person. Love had nothing to do with it. Or they seek reputation. That's the fame part. People think highly of you. You have a broad reputation, like a movie star where everybody knows who you are. You go out at the mall and everybody sees you and likes you because of your reputation. In a mall in any city, Los Angeles, New York, makes no difference. You're internationally known and recognized. Or he says outward success of money. In other words, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, people envy that. And he said they remain unhappy and neurotic even when they have attained everything they were seeking. Why does this occur? He says because they have had too narrow a spiritual horizon. They're not very involved in spiritual things, deeper things, more meaningful things. He says if they are allowed or enabled through therapy perhaps to develop into more spacious personalities, the neurosis generally disappears. And by spacious personality, he means by expanding their horizons. Instead of having too narrow a spiritual horizon, they must enlarge the personality. They must allow themselves to partake in more that reality has to offer, to open their minds up even more than now, than what they possess now. Well, let's look at a quote now that comes from the Red Book. That was a very expensive book when it came out. Beautiful book. It cost many times more what a book would cost. So from the Red Book, he says this: life itself is full of craziness. Did you ever think that? Did you ever think, wow, life is crazy? It's nuts what's going on out there. What's happened to me is crazy. Well, he agrees. Life itself, it's full of craziness. And at the bottom, when you sort through all the craziness, at the very bottom you find life is utterly illogical. It doesn't follow logic. Logic is a real thing and it works in the external world, but your life, your existence, it's not perfectly logical. He says man strives towards reason, that's logic, only so he can make rules for himself. In other words, he wants to understand reality, so he strives towards reason. But he says life itself has no rules. So a man can make rules, but life doesn't live by any rules. Existence does not follow any easily understood or known rules. And he goes on to say that is its mystery and its unknown law. What you call knowledge is an attempt to impose something understandable. He uses the word comprehensible. It would be more comprehensible to use the word understandable. To impose something understandable on life. He's saying we're imposing it. It doesn't have that. In other words, what he's saying to you is we don't know where we come from. We don't know what we're supposed to do. I mean, we are. Is that not true? You exist. You are. But where were you before you are? Where did you come from? You had a beginning, and now it seems like you had no beginning. What are you supposed to do? How should you lead your life? He is suggesting that existence or consciousness is incredibly complicated. Perhaps unknowable we are, but we don't know why we are. We don't know if we will always be. Those are the questions of life, the big questions. And man strives through science, logic, and understanding, experimentation, to understand life so that he can say this is the rule of life. But Jung says it's not a rule of life because life is not limited to any rules. It has none. We strive, all the knowledge, all the understanding, we strive for that, for us to make rules for us to live by, when in reality we wanted to understand how life wanted us to live. We wanted to understand life, but all we're understanding is rules that we impose upon ourselves, our ideas of what it should be, but not the actual rules of life, because life itself has no rules. It's a Jungian quote from the Red Book. Life itself has no rules. And he says that is its mystery, the mystery of life. In this process of trying to understand life, he talks about growth in life. He's talking about this constant process of individuation where the unconscious, which is where we started, where we live, where our roots are, gives an urge. We have an urge to take that which is in the unconscious and bring it into consciousness, bring it into our world, to this three-dimensional reality that we enter when we wake up in the morning and we leave it when we go to sleep at night. Of that, he says this, quote, there is no coming to consciousness, becoming more conscious, coming to consciousness. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. It's a painful process, he says, because there will be many mistakes made, and you're constantly fixing them, redoing it, learning from your mistakes. And about those mistakes, the things that cause you pain in life, he says this, quote, mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth. And if a man does not know what a thing is, it at least increases his knowledge if he finds out what it is not. So when you make a mistake and you think this is the one you should be engaged to, perhaps, or this is what's important in a relationship, and it turns out not to be true, you still don't know what is true. But you're not going to make the same mistake again. You now know what isn't true. You found out through your mistake what is not true. You don't know what is true. You don't know. You thought this type of person was the one you should seek. It would make for a good relationship. You find out you were wrong. You still don't know what type of person is right. You don't know that. You were wrong. You thought this type was the right type. You were wrong about that. And now when you continue to look for the right type, you won't look for the type you just had because you know it was wrong. That type, the type you thought was right, was wrong. The type that is right, you don't know what it is, but you know it's not the one you had. It's kind of like a divorce. Divorce can be very painful, but sometimes people don't accept divorce for what it is. They think they might get together again. They think it's not that big a deal. And sometimes in therapy, I have tried to make it clear to my client what divorce really is. Divorce isn't, well, we tried, but it didn't work out, and here's the best to you and me, and it wasn't you, that it was me, I wasn't ready for this, that's why we're getting divorced. Here's what divorce really is. It's saying, look, of all the people that are out in the world that I'm going to go look at, of all those people, there's millions of people that are in the world that I could have a relationship with. And I'm open to it. I'm open to having a relationship with millions of people potentially, to the 12 eligible people in our town, to our friends from the mall. I'm open to all those people, but I am not open to you. You're the one person in the world of the millions who I am out and out rejecting. You're gone. I don't know who's right for me, but of the millions of people that are available, but I know you are not the one. You're out. Divorce is a really final thing. It's rejection at the highest possible level. Think about it. And seeing it as less than that is a mistake. I don't know who's right for me, but I sure as hell know it's not you. And that's what Jung is saying here. If a man does not know what a thing is, at least he increases his knowledge by knowing what it's not. So the divorced person, they don't know, or the divorcing person, they don't know who's right for them. They don't know. But they have increased their knowledge. They've gone further in life because they know it's not you or anybody like you. This is Analytical Media. I hope we've brought some insight into this. Hope we've given you something to think about. I hope you'll join us in our next video. I hope you'll help us spread the word by commenting on this or subscribing. It may benefit other people. That's what we're hoping. Having said all that, please take care, and we will see you the next time we post.